The state of California, you've heard of it before, well, it passed a new rule banning the sale of all gas-powered vehicles by 2035.
So there's still some time.
There's some time.
There's dozens coming. Ford has a electric F-150 pickup truck. Chevrolet will have their own pickup truck, electric, next year. So they're all coming very, very soon.
So, 1871, Mannheim, Germany. A guy named Carl teams up with his friend August, and they open a mechanical workshop. But pretty badly, because they go bankrupt and the bank takes all their shit. Apparently this is all August's fault. Anyway, a year goes by, it's 1872, and Carl's been dating this girl named Bertha. And he goes, okay, I'm gonna marry her. Historically, in most cultures, and still today in some, when a man marries a woman, he would have to give the woman a certain sum of money or valuables as a gift, and that's called a dowry. Usually that was quite a bit of money, so Carl married Bertha and gave her the bunch of money. I don't know how much exactly, but Bertha decided she wasn't going to waste it on whatever the popular shit was at the time, but instead, she bought August shares of the company.
So I'm going to pay you $100 to fuck off.
And so August was gone, who was apparently the idiot who made the business fail so badly anyway. So the business runs for some time, and in 1878, Carl decides he's going to get innovative. He wanted money, so instead of doing what I do, which is eating another bag of Cheetos and crying, staring at the ceiling when I want money, he decided to try to invent something. No comment on the fact that he tried to invent something to get more money just 2 years before the popularization of cocaine. So he went for it. And on New Year's Eve of 1879, he finished the first gas-powered internal combustion engine.
What the fuck is that?
To celebrate the new year of 1880, because he finished literally on New Year's Eve, he ran the engine for the first time. And it worked. So he patented it, got super hyped up, and then realized, how do you sell a big, heavy, loud, dangerous metal blob that turns spicy fire juice into rotation and doesn't even do it that well? He was going to make a car. So, you'd think, oh, he's going to make some bare bones prototype where it's like you start the engine and the wheel just spins with the engine. No, this motherfucker invented the gas pedal, the spark plug, the carburetor, the clutch, the gear shift, and the radiator over the next singular year. In one fucking year, this Chad made like half the parts of a fucking car. The essential parts. So, after he'd figured all that out, the bank came along again, and I genuinely can't even figure out why this time. I don't know. Anyway, he got some help from a random photographer dude, I don't know, who was interested in business, and his brother, who was a cheese merchant, and they made it into a real corporation making cars, except it's just after they made it that Carl got pissed because he realized he only owned 5% of the company, so he left them and said, fuck you, the car's still mine. So, keep in mind though, he hadn't actually made the car yet, he'd still just had all the parts and the engine. So in 1883, he met this couple who he thought was pretty cool, and the three of them opened a bike repair shop. So that couple, I'm pretty sure, was already planning to open one, but they were happy to have Carl's help because he was smart. And Carl was happy because it would give him an opportunity to keep making his car. By 1885, he made the first thing you could kind of call a car. It was more of a gas-powered, like, four-wheel bike, but it was something. It had gears, it had an engine, it had wheels, and you could ride around in it. What more do you need? He gave it the incredibly creative title of the automobile fueled with gas. Anyway, he got all hyped up about that, and he went out onto the streets to do a public demo of it. In his public demonstration, he showed it off by slamming it straight into a fucking brick wall and breaking it. So he knew he had to make some tweaks. By 1888, he started selling these death trap abominations. At the time, people saw this kind of like if you went up to someone today and showed them a jet-powered shopping cart. They'd say you were insane, reckless. Things went well, they sold some cars. Cars in general were pretty much his idea at that point, so there wasn't any competition. It wasn't like, oh, buy this car instead of this one. It was more like, car. So, yeah. Things were going pretty well. Business was decent. Now, back to Bertha, the girl that he married. She was pretty much responsible for all this happening, because if she hadn't bought all those shares from August and instead had just gone and bought some fucking Supreme, then none of this would have ever happened. So she kind of thinks she needs some credit, so she asks, hey, can I at least just try taking the car for a spin? Carl said no. So she said, fuck you. She got up early when he was still asleep, took the kids and the car, and left. Anyway, she took it 104 kilometers away to visit her mother, and she brought 2 of their 5 kids. Along the way, she casually kind of invented brake pads by stuffing leather in the brakes. Before that, they were literally just using solid blocks. I don't even know what, like, 90% of my sources for this shit are like 800 different Wikipedia pages, and none of them will tell me. And yeah, she also thought there should be 3 gears instead of 2 so that climbing hills would be easier. Well, we ended up with 6, so yeah, she was on the right track. Anyway, in 1889, at the Paris World Fair, which is where all the cool people flex their new shit, I don't know, Carl showed off his car. From 1886 to 1893, he made 25 of these shit boxes. And in 1889, they had 50 employees. But by 1899, they had 430 employees, and they'd made more than 500 cars. And it wasn't even, like, they were... I can jog faster. I can jog faster than these things with, like, enough endurance to go for hours. Actually, no, I'm out of shape lately. Yeah, I'm actually out of shape. Okay, but yeah. I don't exactly know how patents worked in late 1800s Germany, but everyone else was suddenly allowed to start copying him. But he was still the biggest car maker, so now that he'd invented cars, he came across a new issue. They cost a fuck ton, and were still shit. So a bunch of dudes from Paris, who were like business people, they told him he's got to try to make his cars cheaper to stay competitive. So that's what he did. And from 1893 to 1900, he made the Victoria. It's a 2-seater, 3-horsepower car, and it sold beautifully. But Carl already realized what the future of cars was, and that was mass production. And he needed to make them even cheaper. So from 1894 to 1902, they made another car, the Velocipede, the world's very first mass-produced car with a whopping 1-liter, 2-stroke engine, pumping out 3 horsepower. It had a top speed of 20 kph. Soon after they started selling it in 1894, the world's first automobile race happened. 126 kilometers from start to finish. The Velocipede actually did pretty well, getting 14th place with an average speed of 12.7 kilometers per hour. So the winner of that race was a Peugeot powered by steam, which I don't really count in this story because it's one of those like steampunky abomination things. Peugeot in general wasn't really that successful at the time anyway. They were kind of just as shit as they are today. I'm not saying popularity. I know they're popular today. They're still shit though. So Carl moved on and he started making more cool shit. In 1895, he made a truck, which was just a bigger car. I don't know. And then he made the first bus, which when you think about it is also a bigger car. I guess these weren't really that big innovations. I don't know. And yeah, in 1896, he decided to improve the engine that he'd previously designed and rethink it. He took the cylinders and he spread them apart so they faced away from each other, and he invented the flat engine. That's a layout still used a lot today. Cars like the Ferrari Testarossa, the Mayor's Mags, and just about every Subaru and Porsche use flat engines, also called boxers. So around this time, competition got pretty serious. A company called DMG made an incredible engine. Let's ignore that their founder disappeared mysteriously, still unsolved only a couple months earlier. But this thing was a masterpiece. Engineer Wilhelm Maybach from DMG made a 35 horsepower engine. Now the guy who told him to make it was some business dude named Emil, who saw that the future of cars was fast. DMG wanted to call it Daimler after their mysteriously disappeared founder, but Emil wanted to name it after his daughter. Now you've heard his daughter's name before. I know you have. Because her name was Mercedes. And so they called it the Daimler Mercedes engine as a compromise. So Emil put that engine in one of DMG's cars and he fucking dominated the track. He loved racing these things so much, and he said that people should be able to commercially purchase race cars and drive them around the street if they want. So DMG started selling cars with that engine in 1902. So Carl saw this and switched his focus from cheap to fast. He made a car called the Parsifal with 60 horsepower, which at the time was an absolute fucking beast. The business people who were running Carl's company by that point started hiring some French designers to make their cars. Now Carl hated the French. And since he couldn't really stop what the business dudes were doing, he said he was going to retire from doing actual work for the company, but he still wanted to get paid, which all the business people were apparently cool with. So in 1903, he retired. That's where Carl's story ends, but now I'm going to tell you what his last name is. And I know that you've heard of this name, too. Benz. You see where this is going now, right? Yeah, side note though, in 1909, someone at the Benz company had a little bit too much crack, I guess, because they built a 21.5 liter, 200 horsepower engine that got a car going 220 fucking 6 kilometers per hour. Yeah, I mean, 1880 was when crack was popularized. This was 1909, so I mean, it was probably a big enough thing by then. I would hazard to guess that was it. Anyway, after that, a little thing happened, a little scuffle called World War I. And so everything in Germany sort of went to shit, as well as kind of the entire rest of Europe. And after the war, in 1924, DMG and Benz started to team up because Germany in particular had gone to shit economically, so there wasn't really much any company could do. And in 1926, they officially merged, and they made the Daimler-Benz Company. Now, the automobile department of that company was called Mercedes-Benz, named after the iconic 35 horsepower engine that Emil named after his daughter. They also made that famous Mercedes logo, saying the 3 points are for their engines for land, air, and water. Which also implies they had other divisions for planes and boats. Oh, and sort of unrelated to the story, but then in 1929, at 84 years old, which was pretty old at the time to live, Carl died from bronchitis. I've actually had bronchitis before. It's shitty. If you don't have an inhaler, like, so that killed him. Anyway, Mercedes-Benz, who was already separate from him by that point, kept making engineered cars. In World War II, they even made submarines and tanks, but considering the government at the time, it's not like they had that much of a choice. I'm not going to go any further into that because that's too touchy of a subject for this video. In 1998, they made another merger, this one with Chrysler. They merged with the American company Chrysler, which at the time was a fucking disaster. Anyway, the merger was valued at I think it was 38 billion US dollars. Yeah. So this poor little German company forgot that this was America and didn't expect everyone to just start suing each other for no fucking reason. Which they did. So they didn't like that too much. Anyway, 2007, Mercedes decided, okay, fuck Chrysler, and they asked GM if they wanted it. GM said, get that thing away from me. So they went to some random investing firm and sold it for $7.4 billion. But they ended up paying back $500 million of that as an apology for dumping that liability fucking disaster on them. Then the firm sold it in 2010 to TD Bank. Those of you who aren't Canadian might not be familiar with TD Bank, but that's my bank. My bank bought a burning, collapsed, nearly dead shit company for $6.3 billion at that point. Notice the value's been going down more and more every time somebody sells it. TD eventually got rid of it, thank fuck, and as Chrysler continued to helplessly shit itself like a crying newborn baby, Fiat bought it for some fucking reason, and they actually managed to fix it up and get it back to being one of the big three. So, yeah. Modern day. Here we are. In September of 2019, Daimler, the parent company of Mercedes-Benz, announced that there would be no more development on gasoline engines in their company. They aim to become fully electric by 2030, and they've already stopped all gasoline innovation. But is that really a bad thing? I mean, Carl did the same thing to horses. When was the last time you saw a horse walking around on the street? Really? Time progresses. Things change. The truth is, the gasoline engine is really fucking old. It's really outdated. Sure, it's a fun thing to study and learn about and to modify and to hear the sound of it, but I mean, horse riding is a hobby too. It's a fun thing, but it's not practical anymore. That's why, horse riding only exists with Amish people and as a hobby. It became a specialized thing. And that's what I think is happening to gasoline engines. It'll become a special, hobbyist, exclusive thing where there'll be historical artifacts preserved that get taken out for a drive once or twice now and then, just for history's sake. But the future's got a lot in it right now. When you look at electric cars, they're more powerful, they're better, there is nothing worse about these. And yes, there's the argument that the energy that is used to charge them is the same as the gas. Yeah, but it gives us an option to move away from that. If we keep using gasoline-powered cars, we're going to be dumping shit into the atmosphere for forever. If we start using electric cars, it means that our next step is to look at electricity generation and fixing that for the environment. Start using sustainable sources. And who knows, maybe we can get these to be more efficient. Innovation happens. They went from, that 35 horsepower Mercedes engine to that 60 horsepower in the Parsifal, right? We're going to make those innovations with electric cars. They're going to get better. They're long past gasoline engines, and we're just going to need to let go of the gasoline engine. He made a car called the Parsifal. That's a fucking dumb name. 126 kilometers from start to finish. The velocipede compute. So in 1966, some businessy shit happened. I spent 4 fucking hours working on this script, trying to figure out exactly what happened in 1966. I couldn't fucking find anything, but because I spent so long on it, I refused to take it out of the script. So fuck you.